if you played 18 holes and it took 4.5 hours, if you took 4.5 hours and broke it down to a minute multiplication, you'd have 270 minutes, okay? If we take putting out of the equation, because on the putting green, you're moving much faster than you would be on the golf course. Let's say you shot 90 and you had 36 putts. That means you had 54 full swings. If you took 270 minutes and you broke it down by 54 shots, you'd be hitting a shot once every roughly, I didn't do the math on this, but roughly 5 minutes. Hey golfers, Tony McMullen, the founder of Smart Golf Academy here. Today I want to ask you a question. When you go to practice, when you go to the driving range and you're going to practice your game, let's say you're going to go play or maybe you're just getting some practice in, here's my question. Are you practicing to get better or are you just getting better at practice? Okay. What I want to talk to you about today is a better way to learn and a better way to prepare yourself to play and a better way to perform on the golf course. So we've all been to the driving range before and we've seen the people that come over and they'll get a bucket of balls and they'll hit maybe 1 or 2 clubs, and then after they've hit maybe a dozen balls, they go right to the big boy and start hitting the driver. And that's what they spend the rest of their bucket doing. And they don't really get anything other than an aerobic exercise out of that. And let me tell you why. But before I do, if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, we'd love to have you as one. We put out great content every week. If you subscribe, hit the little bell down below. It's going to notify you and let you know that we've got another piece of content out that might just help you unlock the part of your game that you need to perform better. And we'd love it if you leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing, if we've done something or put some content out there that's helped your game to get better in some way, or if you'd like to see something. We're always looking for great ideas for new content. That's where this came from. If you would drop us a line and let us know, we'd love that. All right. So a couple of things about learning. There are two types or two ways to practice. There's what we call block practice, and then there's what we call random practice. Okay, now block practice, a good example of that is if you wanted to learn to hit, let's say with your driver, we'll use that example. Let's say you wanted to learn to hit a draw. If you wanted to draw the ball, so for a right-handed player, that would be hitting the ball with just a gentle curve from right to left, okay? That requires a specific swing path and a specific position of the club head, all right? Block practice would be to take the driver, take a bucket of balls, and once you've learned the basic concept of how that works, then you would want to do that over and over and over again until you actually got it and you felt confident with it. That would be an example of block practice. Random practice might be something like, and I'm sure everyone's heard of this, if you go to the driving range and in your mind you formulate a golf course that you've played. So you would hit driver and then off the first hole, and then let's say you hit the drive really well and then you felt like you'd have a 7-iron left in, then you go over to your bag and you get a 7-iron, and then you would hit that, and then you might get maybe a wedge or something like that, say it was a par 5, that sort of thing. So you're actually playing a hole in your mind, but the idea would be is that you wouldn't keep hitting one club over and over and over again. That would be block practice versus random practice when you're hitting different clubs, 1, maybe 2 shots at a time, okay? Now, which one is better if you just want to get better at practicing? Well, I would say block practice is better, okay? Because you're learning a way to practice a shot. You're learning a way to figure out how do I want to hit this shot and how do I want to get really efficient and consistent with it, okay? Learning, let me explain this to you. Your random practice is going to be a better learning mode for you. So I'll give you a simple exercise. If I say, what is 12 times 8? Well, you're thinking about it right now, and then you come up with 96, okay? That's a process. So 12 times 8 is 96. If I turn around and I looked at you immediately after you gave me the answer, and I said, okay, what's 8 times 12? Different configuration, but you're going to come up with the same answer. But how'd you come up with the answer? You already knew what it was, okay? If I took a piece of paper and I wrote 10 times, 12 times 8, 12 times 8, 12 times 8, by the time you got to the 10th time of solving that problem, you wouldn't be solving the problem anymore. You'd be responding to what you see, okay? In some ways, that's good, but if you're going to be playing golf, it's not, because we don't hit the same shot over and over and over again. We don't even have the same conditions sometimes twice in a row, okay? Random practice would be if I said, what's 12 times 8? And you said 96. And then I said, what's 8 times 4? And you thought about it, and you said 32. And then I said, 6 times 5? Think about it, it would be 30. Okay, you see where I'm going with that? So if I put 10 problems on a paper that were all different, you'd have to use that process 10 different times. Now you're learning to solve problems, okay? The problem with somebody who goes to the range and ends up just hitting one club for 3/4 of the bucket is that they're really not learning anything. They're grooving a swing, they're perfecting a swing, but it's not teaching you anything, and it's not properly preparing you to play golf. So here's what I'd suggest. When you go to the driving range, I want you to get it in your mind that I'm going to practice as if I was playing golf. Now, there's any number of ways you can do that. I just explained one to you. You can get a golf course in your mind and play the golf course, right? You can hit different shots at different times. You can also work on different shot shapes with different clubs, okay? But what I'd like for you to get out of this is the understanding that because golf is an outdoor sport played on a field, basically, that has a whole bunch of uneven lies, rarely are you going to get the same shot twice in a row. So practicing that same shot twice in a row, it's productive, but it's not going to be useful when you're playing golf. You want to start practicing the way that you play. I'll give you another example, okay? If you played 18 holes and it took 4.5 hours, if you took 4.5 hours and broke it down to a minute multiplication, you'd have 270 minutes, okay? If we take putting out of the equation, because on the putting green, you're moving much faster than you would be on the golf course. Let's say you shot 90 and you had 36 putts. That means you had 54 full swings. If you took 270 minutes and you broke it down by 54 shots, you'd be hitting a shot once every roughly, I didn't do the math on this, but roughly 5 minutes, okay? When you're practicing, not only should you be random in your clubs, but you shouldn't stand in one spot and just keep rifling balls, right? You want to give yourself a couple of minutes in between shots. What does that do? That prepares you mentally, and it starts to set up a consistent timing pattern in your mind. Nothing frustrates people any more than slow play. One of the reasons why is because they're not prepared for it, okay? These are things that you can start to work on the driving range that's going to make you more efficient and more consistent on the golf course. So I'm going to ask again, think about this. Before you go to the driving range the next time, are you getting better at practice, or are you practicing to get better? Think about this. There's many ways to use this, but I would love to see you starting to practice to get better.